Hi Bermuda, happy Heroes Day. I'm Christie Hunter Arscott, and it is truly an honor to have been asked by the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs to give this year's tribute to one of our national heroes, Gladys Morrell. Now, Gladys is best known for her leadership of the women's suffrage movement in Bermuda, which is a cause that she dedicated about 30 years of her life to. But today, what I want to focus on are the lessons her legacy leaves us. 3 critical lessons that I believe are of utmost importance and relevance to our current context, particularly as we have ongoing discussions around social justice, racial equity, and human rights. The first lesson is that rebellion, activism, resistance can take many different forms and many different players. If we look at the suffrage movement, there were so many different ways to resist. There wasn't one right way. Some people marched, some people protest. Gladys didn't pay her taxes, no taxation without representation. Others financed, others lobbied and used their political and social capital in the House of Assembly or in influential groups. There was not one way. There were also a diverse group of players engaged, whether it be across socioeconomic income statuses and professions, areas of the island from Sands to St. George's, races, educational backgrounds, genders. So let's look first to Somerset, where we have Alice Scot, a Black Bermudian nurse who sat on the executive committee of the Bermuda suffrage movement, even though she knew that if they were successful in achieving their aim, she wouldn't directly benefit because the right to vote would only be given to those who owned land. So her family wouldn't benefit immediately. And let's go to St. George's, Sir Stanley Sperling. He was elected into the House of Assembly at around the age of 21. And he used his social and political capital, his influence in the House to champion the women's suffrage movement. Now this reminds me of a quote today that I heard in the last week. A revolution has many lanes. Be kind to yourself and to others who are traveling in the same direction. Just keep your foot on the gas. We may all be in different lanes, but as long as we're moving forward, that's what really matters. There's no one way to resist. The second lesson Gladys's legacy leaves us with is simple but powerful. People can change. The perfect example of this from her time was Dr. Eunice Cann. He was one of the few Black Bermudians in the colonial parliament at the time. He was against suffrage for women. He really worried about the implications on racial injustices and looking at equality overall as he worked towards universal suffrage. But in the end, it was his vote. He cast the tie-breaking vote for women's suffrage, saying that he couldn't uphold the status quo anymore, and that he hoped that this is one step towards universal suffrage. He said something along the lines of, just because we can't get what we want, which was universal suffrage, voting rights for all, irrespective of race or land ownership, he said, just because we can't get what we want doesn't mean we should prevent our sisters from having this right. People are fluid, people are fallible, people are growing, they're ever evolving. Mindset shift, people change. And it's important to remember this. When Gladys was disbanding the movement and the suffragettes because they had achieved their aim, she gave one final speech at their gathering. She looked at Dr. Cann and noted, whose courage to change his mind has won the admiration of the society. Whose courage to change his mind has won the admiration of the society. May we all have the courage to change our minds. And may we all give others the space and grace to change theirs as well. That's the lesson for today. The third lesson that Gladys leaves us with is that you should never underestimate a group of small, committed people and the power that they have to change a nation. There was a book written in 1994 on the 50th anniversary of women's suffrage, written by Colin Benbow with research done by Dale Butler. And it noted that less than 300 ladies were powerful enough to alter our entire franchise. Powerful and relevant today. It reminds me of the common quote that you hear: never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So with these lessons, historical lessons that are still relevant today from Gladys, I'd like to transition and shift focus a bit to talk about our current state. Women in Bermuda have made many strides, but we still lag men in multiple different areas and arenas. In 2019, the PLP's Women's Caucus wrote an excellent article highlighting some of the disparities. They noted that in the House of Assembly, only 8 out of 36 seats at the time were held by women. 8 out of 36. They also talked about income disparity between women and men, but also within women themselves. If you look at women as a group, there's disparities between Black and white, Bermudian and non-Bermudian. A few years ago, I was interested in looking at board representation and looking at the gender breakdown of that in Bermuda. There weren't any statistics that my colleague and I could find, so we decided to do the research ourselves. And we looked at the insurance and reinsurance companies based in Bermuda, looked at all their boards and did the calculation and realized that women only represent 13.5%, 13.5% of board directors on the insurance and reinsurance companies based in Bermuda. Even when we're looking at the upper echelons of women who have succeeded, who have risen through the ranks, if you look at CEOs in Bermuda, a study came out a few years back that said female and male CEOs, they looked at the comparison, women make $140K less annually than their male counterparts. That's $140,000 less. But income disparities affect individuals across all ends of the socioeconomic spectrum. So we've made strides, but we have a long way to go. In closing today, I wanted to share some personal anecdotes about Gladys. I had the distinct honor and privilege of interviewing her great-granddaughter this week. And I asked her, I said, what type of person was she? And one word came to mind. She said, spunky, which I just loved. And she described how there was this policeman who was sent to arrest Gladys for not paying her taxes because she was saying no taxation without representation. But he was compassionate towards the cause. And so he gave her a heads up. He gave her a message and said, just wanted to let you know I'm on my way. And he was going to take a while. He was in a horse and carriage, and it would give her time to prepare, gather her things. Instead, Gladys called all of her friends and the suffragettes and threw a going to jail party on her lawn. And I really think this is a testament to her spirit, her spunkiness, and her commitment to the cause. I also found out that she was born and raised on Cavello Hill. And funnily enough, I was born and raised in Cavello Bay. And my family called Cavello Bay home for about 35 years. So Gladys, from one spunky Cavello Bay girl to the other, thank you. Thank you for your legacy. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your resilience. And thank you for the lessons you've left us today. Lessons that are still relevant and I feel increasingly relevant in the current context. That rebellion, activism, and resistance can take so many different shapes and forms and so many different players. That people can change, and may we all have the courage to change our minds and give others the space and grace to change theirs. And the third lesson, that we should never underestimate the power of a small committed group to change our nation. So in closing, I wanted to read one quote from female poet Rupi. I stand on the sacrifices of 1 million women before me, thinking, what can I do to make this mountain taller so that those who are coming after me can see farther. Happy Heroes Day, Bermuda.